symptoms were epigastric pain, which occurs shortly after meal, tarry stool, nausea, vomiting, and bloating. His past medical history was he had an heart attack 3 months ago, so he was on aspirin, which is an NSAID, osteoarthritis, so he was on medications of osteoarthritis also. So he was on long term use of NSAID. He also had hypertension. So his past medical history and signs and symptoms suggested for an initial diagnosis of peptic ulcer. Tests performed were blood test for presence of certain cells with H. pylori infection, stool antigen test for proteins in stool related to H. pylori, and the EGD test, that is esophagogastroduodenoscopy. The treatment given, which depended on the cause and severity of the symptoms. First, for the eradication of H. pylori, antibiotics were given, two therapies, that is first triple drug therapy, which included the drugs like omeprazole, amoxicillin or metronidazole, and clarithromycin. And in quadruple therapy, ranitidine bismuth citrate, tetracycline, metronidazole, and omeprazole were given. Secondly, cytoprotective agents, as he was on long-term use of NSAID, so he was given cytoprotective agents like histamine receptor blockers or proton pump inhibitors so as to reduce the amount of acid and protect the stomach lining. Thirdly, health education was given so as to avoid spicy food, avoiding late night meals, and a healthy diet with plenty of water. Uh, so lifestyle modification can help cure the ulcer at a faster rate. The patient suffered from peptic ulcer due to many reasons like H. pylori infection, long-term use of NSAID. According to research, if symptoms of peptic ulcer are not treated, that may lead to complication like bleeding, perforation, narrowing, and obstruction. More severe the symptoms, if the symptoms are more severe, surgery may be required. Peptic ulcer patient can manage his symptoms by adhering to medications and certain lifestyle modifications. The conclusion from the above case is peptic ulcer is a manageable disease and if not treated, may lead towards complications. NSAID-induced ulcers are more common in elderly patients as they use analgesics more frequently and may lead towards complications. Thank you.
Okay, Smita, good presentation. Can you tell me what do you mean by NSAIDs?
Ma'am, it's non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs.
Okay, any example?
Aspirin.
Okay, good.
Yes, ma'am.
Who's the next person?
Hello, am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, please start.
Good morning, everyone. Myself, Kaustubh Belekar, roll number 49. Duodenal ulcers. These are also a type of peptic ulcers. Here, the blister formation takes place on the lining of the duodenum. Next slide. The causes for the duodenum ulcers are the same for the peptic ulcers. Common cause is the infection with the Helicobacter pylori, which is a bacteria commonly live in the mucus layer that covers and protects the tissue that lines stomach and small intestine. Often it causes no problem, but a bacteria can cause the lining of a duodenum to become inflamed and the ulcer can form. It's also possible that you are more likely to get a duodenal ulcer if you smoke, drink a lot of alcohol, or you are stressed. Next slide. Again, one of the main causes is that your stomach makes a strong acid, HCl, which is secreted by the parietal cells of the stomach. This acid kills germs and helps to digest the food. To protect ourselves against this acid, cells of the stomach and duodenum makes a barrier from mucus. If this barrier is damaged due to alteration in balance between amount of acid produced and mucus defense barrier, an ulcer can form. Some medications can also cause a duodenal ulcer, particularly the anti-inflammatory drugs such as ibuprofen, aspirin. These medicines sometimes affect the mucous barrier of the duodenum and allow acid to cause an ulcer. There's a disorder which also causes the duodenal ulcer, which is the Zollinger-Ellison syndrome. In this syndrome, gastrinoma. This syndrome is caused by gastrinoma, a neuroendocrine tumor that secretes a hormone called gastrin. This gastrin hormone stimulates parietal cells to secrete more and more HCl, which can cause resulting in the peptic ulcers. Next, we will see the test for the duodenal ulcers. Okay, the tests are also the same, likewise the peptic ulcers. First is the gastroscopy. It is a test that can confirm a duodenal ulcer. It is the test a doctor or nurse looks inside a stomach and the first part of a small intestine. They do this by passing a thin, flexible telescope down your gullet. They can see any inflammation on ulcers. Next, test to detect the Helicobacter pylori is usually done if you have a duodenal ulcer. If the Helicobacter pylori is found, then it is likely to be the cause of the ulcer. That test includes the urea breath test, stool sample test, and the biopsy sample taken during endoscopy. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Digvi Pandit, roll number 45, and I will be presenting the symptoms and treatments for duodenal ulcer. Common symptoms for this ulcer include dull and burning stomach pain, which is the most common one. You have unexplained weight loss, appetite changes, and there is upper abdominal burning pain, which usually occurs 1 to 3 hours after eating a meal. Next slide. In severe cases, the symptoms presented are vomiting with or without blood, which appears dark red or brown. It indicates bleeding ulcers. Bleeding ulcers also present symptoms such as dark blood in stools and feeling faint. Next slide. As we can already see in this slide, that the common risk factors for ulcers are stress, Helicobacter pylori, alcohol, and smoking. A common point of differentiation between both the ulcers is that in gastric ulcers, pain increases after eating, and in duodenal ulcers, pain decreases after eating. Another point of differentiation is that in gastric ulcers, pain occurs mainly 30 minutes or 60 minutes after a meal, and in duodenal ulcers, pain usually occurs 2 to 3 hours after a meal. The treatment for duodenal ulcers shows 3 pathways. Pathway 1 is the treatment for the bacteria. The treatment includes uses of antibiotics along with proton pump inhibitors. The reason behind that is because it is very difficult to eradicate the bacteria, hence a triple therapy or a quadruple therapy is used. Common examples of antibiotics are tetracycline and amoxicillin. Side effects of using antibiotics are nausea, diarrhea, and inflammation of the colon. The second pathway is treatment by antacids. Now, antacids neutralize gastric acids, but because of the fact that they present a lot of side effects, they are not a preferred route of treatment. As you can see in this table, Melox and Mylanta have magnesium as the metallic component, and they show diarrhea as a side effect. Similarly, Amphogel having aluminum as a metallic component shows constipation as a side effect. Pathway 3. Pathway 3 shows the use of antihistamines. These work along with H2 blockers, and these are antagonists of histamines. Common examples in this drug category are cimetidine, ranitidine, nizatidine, and famotidine. Long usage of these drugs over long usage and over a long duration of time may increase blood alcohol levels. Another condition to note is that patients who are on heavy medications, antihistamines interfere with the liver's handling of these medications. Other conservative measures for preventing duodenal ulcer includes quitting smoking, reducing your alcohol and caffeine intake, and reducing your stress levels. Diet and prevention. Now, there is no proven relationship between peptic ulcer and the intake of coffee and alcohol. However, it has been noted that coffee stimulates your gastric acid secretion and alcohol causes gastritis. And hence, doctors advise moderation in your alcohol and coffee consumption. Other food items which can be taken while you're going through this disease include food items rich in fibers, such as apples and oatmeal, food items rich in probiotics, such as yogurt and kimchi, antioxidants like bell peppers and blueberries also help us in speedy recovery. One important note of caution is that milk and alcohol should be completely avoided. Thank you, ma'am.
Hello. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are audible. Please continue.
Hello, everybody. Myself, Mayuresh Tayade, roll number 46, and today I am explaining the case study for the duodenal ulcers. Basically, the duodenal ulcers and gastric ulcers, the symptoms for both of them are similar at most of the times. So I will continue. A 35-year-old man complaining of a dark stool for the last 2 days. He had an epigastric pain for 2 weeks that improves 2 to 3 hours after eating, worst at night. He also had a vomit having a blood in it. This blood in the vomit shows that the ulcer starts the bleeding. That ulcer had protruded that duodenum to the vessels to the level of that vessels. That means a vessel has been damaged in this ulcer. He also had a nausea and a feeling of fullness after eating the small amount. He has not had difficulty in swallowing. This shows these symptoms shows that he has not any ulcer in the esophageal region. Now his history says that he is a construction worker and takes an naproxen several times a day for the back pain. As already said by Aditi or my friends, that NSAID, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Sorry for that. Naproxen is also one of the components of that NSAID drugs. So these drugs increases the acidic amount of the gastric region. He also smokes. Again, the stimulative factor of the acid. On exam, he has a tenderness to palpation in epigastrium without a rebound tenderness, and he has dropped a 9 gram. Hemoglobin of his had dropped to 9 gram per deciliter from 11 gram per deciliter several months ago. This also shows that basically rarely the hemoglobin, this anemia, the iron deficiency anemia in this condition means in condition of a duodenal ulcer is rare in male. And
what type of anemia can you say this?
Ma'am, it may be a hemorrhagic anemia.
Yes, due to chronic hemorrhage from the ulcer. Blood loss or hemorrhage
from the duodenal ulcer. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what do you understand by rebound tenderness?
Ma'am,
you can
sorry, ma'am.
Tell me in Hindi or Marathi, no issues.
Sorry, ma'am, I'm not able to recollect that.
What is tenderness?
असं पोट थोडं कडक वाटणं, फुगलेलं वगैरे वाटणे असे.
What do you mean by tenderness?
Ma'am, असं कडक वाटणे.
No. Tenderness means on palpation, if the patient gives you the sign of pain on his facial expression, that means that is tenderness. Pain on palpation is tenderness. Now, what is rebound tenderness?
Sorry, ma'am, I'm not able to recollect that.
When you press harder, then there is tenderness. That is called as rebound tenderness. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
You have to examine the person per abdominal examination. When you palpate, that is feel the abdominal wall and the organs by your hand. Then you will elicit these signs: tenderness, rigidity. Okay, what you were saying, that pot kadak vatne, that is called as rigidity. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am.
Okay, we have not discussed clinical examination of abdomen, so you may not understand these terms. Only thing is, we need to clarify what you are talking. Okay, so you can continue.
Yes, ma'am. And now the means that now the basic test that we have already covered in the gastric case study of the gastric ulcer. Same test, endoscopy, blood test, and infection might be of H. pylori, but that's a different case. That infection of the H. pylori, that the treatment for that is a different thing. As H. pylori is infection, that H. pylori causes the infection to the mucus layer and not to the muscular layer of the duodenum. The muscular layer is corroded by our gastric juices as well. So
we know the etiology that it is an NSAID which has caused this ulcer. So how will be your line of treatment?
Ma'am, first we will do we will have to take a sample of the gastric juice, etc. during endoscopy. Endoscopy is a must thing that we have to, मतलब उसके सिवा तो कुछ हो ही नहीं सकता.
It is biopsy.
Yes, ma'am.
Ulcerated site.
Yes, ma'am.
हाँ.
तो बायोप्सी में हमें तो समझ में आ जाएगा कि उसके H. pylori है या नहीं.
हाँ, right. So we excluded now. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So in this case, we are probably seeing that NSAID is the cause. So how
yes,
will
ma'am.
your line of management? How will you proceed?
Ma'am, first of all, I will prescribe him for the antacids, generally omeprazole, etc. like that. Not but I will not prefer that ranitidine, because that's not मतलब वो ऐसी drug है मैम कि as my father was suffering from duodenal ulcer, तो सर ने बोला था कि वो ranitidine एक मतलब अगर डिसकंटिन्यू हुआ तो जितने दिन डिसकंटिन्यू हुआ उतने दिन का वो बदला निकाल लेती है. तो omeprazole as an antacid and clarithromycin, like that.
What is clarithromycin and what is the use?
Ma'am, it will eradicate the H. pylori bacteria.
Yes, it is an antibiotic.
Yes, ma'am.
To treat the bacterial infection. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. If
anything
it is a bacterial
like
infection,
advise?
And not to smoke and change in a daily routine life.
But he has back pain, no, for which he is taking.
Yes, ma'am.
So what about
yes,
the
ma'am.
naproxen?
You will have to stop him from taking that.
Yes, ma'am.
So how will you help him with the back pain then?
Ma'am, buframide or एक्सटर्नल फॉर मतलब अंटिल जब तक कि ये अल्सर ठीक हो जाता है. अगर H. pylori है तो 14 दिन का तो साइकिल रहेगा ना मैम उसका. 14 दिन तक तो उसको वो बाजू में रखना ही पड़ेगा ना, naproxen वगैरह.
One of the etiologies also NSAID which he is taking.
Yes.
He's a construction worker. He has to work for his living, no, and he has back pain. So until
yes,
and unless before that, it will be a vicious circle that will continue. You will
yes,
have to send him or consult a physiotherapy.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You will have to see whether he has some issues with his back. Only then
yes.
stop with his naproxens, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Shall we proceed further?
No. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good morning to one and all. I am Mitali. My roll number is 41, and today I am presenting mechanism of drug action. So we have already seen the causes of peptic ulcers, which are commonly excessive secretion of acids, continuous dosage of NSAIDs, infection by bacteria, that is H. pylori. So it can be prevented by many mechanisms, and here I am presenting a few. The first one is the proton pump inhibitor, which works by decreasing the excess acid produced in the stomach. So the parietal cells are responsible, as we know that the parietal cells are responsible for the secretion of HCl in the stomach. And this secretion is stimulated by various hormones such as gastrin, histamine, or acetylcholine. So on the parietal cells, there are receptors for these hormones. So I'll take the example of histamine receptor. The receptor for histamine is the H2 receptor. When histamine binds to this H2 receptors, it generates calcium cyclic AMP. This cyclic AMP phosphorylates the protein kinase A, which activates calcium. And this calcium activates the proton pump in which hydrogen ions are released from the parietal cells and they enter the stomach, and potassium ions enter in. This is basically the secondary active transport. As hydrogen ions enter the stomach, it forms a bond with chlorine, and as a result, HCl is secreted. So basically what a proton pump inhibitor does is that it binds to the pump, the drugs bind to the proton pump and inhibits the release of the hydrogen ions. So as a result, hydrogen HCl secretion is released and the mucosal lining can be protected. This pump is effective. This pump is effective. Hello. Hello.
You're audible. Please continue. We cannot see the screen. The slide share has stopped probably.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, I'll wait then.
No,
or shall I continue?
Yes, please continue without the slide. The one who is showing the slides, please see to it that the slides are seen.
Okay, ma'am. So this pump is effective up to 99%. And the drugs which work by this mechanism, that is the proton pump inhibitor mechanism, are identified by the suffix of prazole. So the examples can be omeprazole, pantoprazole, esomeprazole, etc. Ma'am, can I take the next one then?
Yes, please.
The next mechanism. The next mechanism is the antihistamine inhibitors. So as we have seen that there are H2 receptors present on the parietal cells. So what these antihistamine drugs do are they bind to the receptor, the place where, ma'am, I'll show it on the previous slide. So as we can see here in the diagram that the receptor is present on the parietal cell. So these antihistamine drugs, they bind to the histamine receptors. So the histamine is prevented from binding, and as a result, the further cycle is prevented. That is the release of hydrogen ion and HCl is not formed. So the examples of antihistamine drugs are cimetidine, ranitidine, etc. Next slide. This I have explained at parietal cells. Next. So here it is the diagrammatic representation of the mechanism of functioning of antacids. So as the parietal cells secrete HCl, then when we take an antacid is basically sodium bicarbonate. So when it comes into the stomach, it splits into sodium ion and bicarbonate ion. So as HCl is already present in the stomach, the hydrogen ions, they bind with the carbonate part, that is HCO3, and H2CO3 is formed. This H2CO3 again breaks down and H2O and CO2 is released. And this CO2 can be expelled out from the oral route. This mechanism can increase the lower esophageal sphincter tone and also increases the peristalsis. Next. So as Aditi have mentioned that 75% cause of the peptic ulcer is by H. pylori bacteria. So this is the mechanism of H. pylori. Here you can see a typical bacterial cell, the H. pylori bacterial cell. So the drugs which act on this H. pylori are mainly called as antibiotics. So they can function by various mechanisms. The first one can be you can see it on the upper side. They can act on the cell wall. These are called as cell wall inhibitors. What they do is they rupture the cell wall. So all the cell contents, they come out and the H. pylori is no more functioning there. Examples are penicillin, cephalosporins, cyclosporins, vancomycin, etc. The second site of action, they can be, they interfere with the protein synthesis process. That is basically the bacterial cycle goes as the replication, transcription, translation, and finally the protein is synthesized, which functions as enzyme and acts on the required site. So what happens is it interferes with the translation process and the protein is not formed. So the enzyme action can be inhibited. And the examples are tetracycline, erythromycin, and clindamycin. The next mechanism is the interference with the DNA function and replication. As DNA cannot replicate, so more and more copies are not formed. As a result, again the H. pylori becomes non-functional. And examples are rifamycin and acyclovir. The next mechanism is causing the cell membrane, causing the lysis of the cell membrane. So which again ruptures the cell and it is no more functioning. And the examples are amphotericin and polymycins, etc. So done. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you everyone for talking in detail about the topics. I would like to sum up the topic. So what is an ulcer? Ulcer is basically erosion of surface lining of the organ due to shedding of inflamed necrotic tissue. We saw that there are 3 classifications of ulcer. That is etiological classification, clinical and pathological classification. In that we specifically dealt with the peptic ulcer, which is the ulcer that happens in the duodenum, esophagus or in the stomach. In that we took the topics duodenal and the gastric ulcer as these are the common. In that duodenum is more common than the gastric ulcer, with in 80% of the cases duodenum ulcer is common, whereas the gastric ulcer is common in 15% of the cases, and the rest 5% of the cases it is the esophageal ulcer. The duodenal ulcer is caused due to hypersecretion of the hydrochloric acid, whereas the gastric ulcer is caused due to the hyposecretion of hydrochloric acid. The causes are common in both the cases, that is in most of the cases, that is 75% of the cases, it's the Helicobacter pylori bacteria. The other causes which can cause the peptic ulcer may be alcohol consumption, smoking, and usage of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, such as aspirin and most of the painkillers. These drugs are usually advised to the old patients suffering from arthritis, and due to high dosage of this drug, ulcers are common. The treatment can be in 3 types. It can be used of antibiotics and strong drugs that directly affect the bacteria, as Mithali mentioned earlier. Antibiotics can help. The mechanism of antibiotics can be, they can either stop the, they can degrade the cell wall, which causes the lysis of the cell. They can either stop the protein synthesis by interfering the translation, or they can interfere with the DNA, causing the alteration in the transcription process. Others can be used. These are antacids. Okay, but antacids may have side effects. That's why these are used in less proportion. Another thing which can be done is the use of antihistamine, which blocks the H2 receptors. These H2 receptors are responsible. The histamine binds to the H2 receptors, which causes the secretion of the HCl. A reduce in the secretion of the HCl can help to reduce the gastric ulcer. Whereas the antihistamines are ranitidine and cinetidine are the common antihistamines. Whereas the antibiotics, the common antibiotics are amoxicillin and tetracycline. The techniques used to diagnose the ulcers are barium swallow technique and endoscopy. Barium swallow technique, in which a solution containing barium is swallowed by the patient and the X-rays are taken out. The areas where the white part of the barium swallow is absent is considered to be the affected area. Whereas endoscopy, you get the clear pictures of the ulcer. Like this, it shows gastric ulcer and the duodenal ulcer. The treatments that can be done can be home remedies that can be done by intake of foods rich in fibers, antioxidants, and probiotics. Example, banana, cabbage are proved to be helpful for peptic ulcer. The triple therapy consists of 1 proton inhibitor and 2 antibiotics. That's all for today. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Dr. Joshi, Professor of Physiology. This was my first SDL with you. It was very nice presentations by you. Only thing I want to add is the definition of ulcer. Definition of ulcer is any discontinuation in the epithelium or the mucosa, okay, is called as the ulcer. Okay, and I was very impressed with the case report studies that the students presented. It was very nice and very detailed explanation. I asked Baste madam to give her opinion.
Nice presentation. Congratulations, roll number 41 to 50. We can see that you had worked hard and your PPT was very good with all the pictures and images. Only thing is, I would advise you to please use standard references. When you are searching on internet, there are hundreds of things which can pop out. Please see to it that your references are medical textbooks or medical sites and not just Wikipedia or random references. And the text that you are typing on the slides, it should not be like your stomach or your intestine or your doctor will do this. It should be presented as it in the textbook format, that endoscopy is done, this is done, that is done. Okay, you will have this symptom. It's not what the language that we expect from you all. Okay,
will be or maybe, and then jot down. Your doctor no. There can be a ulcer that is seen, or there may be endoscopy that must be done. Okay, the language should be like that. That is what madam wants to say.
After summary, please add a slide of references in which whatever references that you are referring should be enlisted, so that it will help other students also to seek more information on the topic. Okay? Very nice presentation. Congratulations once again.
There was one more thing.
Thank you, ma'am.
Duodenal ulcer
Thank you, ma'am.
is due to hyper secretion of HCl, and gastric is also due to hyper. It is not hypo. I think that was a typing mistake done. Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so that's all for now. Biochemistry poster presentation competition will begin soon. And we will have a tutorial after the biochemistry. I will brief you about our schedule in the next week. Okay. Thank you. You can leave this meeting.